I remember maybe 4 years ago, someone on Instagram said, "It's really sad you're always by yourself. It looks like you have no one around you." And I was really hurt because it was true. People try to get to here and they think, "Oh, I'm gonna be sad, I'm gonna be really happy." It's not the case. They say it's lonely on the top. It absolutely can be. The world is really desperate for something else. Everybody's so tired. Everybody keeps pushing. And at the end of our lifetimes, we're gonna just remember that we pushed the whole time. If people are like, "Oh, but my gift isn't worth as much." Like, I made my first million off selling selfies, so. And the world needs what you have. Like, there's a reason why you are doing what you do, and the world really desperately needs it. You just need to find an angle that's unique.
Hello, beautiful beings. Welcome back to the Know Thyself podcast, where every single week we get the honor and privilege to sit down with a beautiful being to see what we can learn from the insights that they have learned in their life to allow us, me included, live a more liberated, joyous human experience. My guest today, I am extremely looking forward to. She's a dear friend of mine and somebody that I just love so much and love the way that she shows up in the world. And I've been able to really foster a beautiful relationship over the past few years, but more recently, the past few months. And we're going to be diving into so many beautiful different topics today, from what it means to be a creator of reality and the different trials and tribulations that she's gone through in her life that's led her to become who she is today. And yeah, so my guest today is Sorelle Amore. She is a YouTuber, a photographer, a financial educator, a business badass, beyond any label that I could put on her. She is just somebody that is, I believe, a very powerful being. She's somebody that is not afraid to challenge the status quo in life. She is somebody that has an amazing mind in the way that she perceives reality, yet she's very humble. And I love how she never takes herself too seriously. And she's somebody, like I said, that is a very powerful individual that's been able to create a really beautiful life for herself. And so I'm excited to dive into the many avenues of that today. Without further ado, my friend and roomie, Sorelle Amore.
Hi, Andre.
Welcome.
So nice to see you.
We're doing it.
We're finally doing it.
It's happening.
I know. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. How was the drive over?
It was really long. The traffic was horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. The 30-second walk from the back was great.
Yes. It's been so good, the past couple months having you here in the amazing, back house. You have your own little queendom castle in the back, and just like welcoming you into LA, like community and all the people here have been like so stoked that you've been able to spend more time, and it's been so fun.
Yeah. And to have you as a roomie is pretty special because it's the central hub of everything, I feel. So I feel very blessed.
I'll make sure I take that to the ego. Yeah. I'm the central hub of everything.
Exactly.
Exactly. Carry on.
Casual.
Yeah, I'm really excited to dive into this conversation today. And, you're somebody that I feel like a lot of people have been able to develop a relationship with online over the past years, that you've been creating videos and financial education videos to your own personal channel of just like taking people on the journey. And I feel like you connect with people in a really beautiful way via camera, like you're talking to somebody that's just like a friend. And so I'm excited to dive into this conversation today for people that do know you, to get a deeper insight into the workings of your mind and your heart and how you've gotten to where you're at and the journey that you're on. And then for people that haven't heard you, just like, how profound and epic you are. So not to set the standard too high, but
I mean, yeah, you have.
I have.
I'm a humble human being, remember?
Yes. It's my job to fluff you up as a friend. So I would actually like to start, since we're kind of here, just talking about friendship. And, it's been so good to spend so much time together the past few months. And recently, like our Burning Man trip, which was just filled with so much magic and beautiful synchronistic moments and amazing moments of connection within community. And I've just really come to personally love like curating and having my circle be smaller with quality, profound, amazing human beings that you can fully be like the full version of yourself with, And so, yeah, what's been the journey for you of like cultivating deep, nourishing friendships? What does friendship mean to you?
Oh, I love that. That's such a nice way to start. Well, actually, So I remember when I was super in my work phase, which lasted about 10 years and it was really intense. And I remember maybe 4 years ago, someone on Instagram said, "It's really sad you're always by yourself. It looks like you have no one around you." And I was really hurt by that because it was true. Because I was so focused on creating everything else outside of that. There was nothing else in my life that mattered. Nothing else mattered except for my career. It was the number one priority above all else. Maybe health was somewhere there lingering, but career was everything else. And that comment really stuck to heart. And when 2020 hit and I realized that I'm away from everybody, I have no connections, I was in the middle of nowhere in a cabin in Iceland, and it didn't really have anyone to lean on. And I was going through a really hard time during that time, like a lot of people have. And, I remember after about 6 months of lying on the couch, kind of depressed, not knowing what's going on, not knowing what's up and what's down, I remember just thinking, like, I'm not even sure how I'm going to exist tomorrow. It wasn't suicidal thoughts by any means, but it was just like, I actually have no idea how I'm physically going to live tomorrow because it just doesn't, it seems so hard. Like, how am I going to do this? And so the thought came into my head and I was like, well, if I'm going to be this miserable forever, then I've heard that having community around you is like a good thing to have.
Yeah.
And friendships are kind of important. So I know. So that thought popped into my head and I was like, well, all right, I'll be miserable, but I'll be surrounded by people, which is good. So I reached out and I created Christmas with all the stragglers that couldn't actually leave Iceland at the time to go back to their home countries. And we had Christmas at our house 2020. And that was the beginning of me cultivating friendships and realizing how much joy it brought me and how really it became the number one priority for me. And I just started diving really, really deep into getting to know people, trying to become like a good friend. It became a thing, a goal of mine to become a good friend. And that journey's taken me on wild adventures. I've been able to meet the most amazing people, and I just find it the most amazing privilege that people would want to spend time with me, full stop. It's like time to me, quality time is the most important love language for me. And if someone's willing to give up their lifeblood to be around me, that's an honor beyond belief. So I'm going to be there. I'm going to be present for them. And yeah, it's been about a 2-year journey for me to just cultivate a lot of friendships. Like, I have so many friends, I just can't believe it. And it's recently gotten to the point where I realized I needed to be very much more intentional around the people who I was surrounding myself with, because it became a little bit too, I couldn't cultivate the deeper friendships that I wanted to. And finding the community, like the Burning Man crew that we had, oh my gosh, of really being able to be fully yourself and, you know, the ugly side, the good side, all of it. Not just the pretty parts. Like, if I have to be in a friendship where you just want one side of me, that's not what I want.
It's no depth.
Yeah, I want to see you in your worst so I can be there also for your best. And I want to support you through that time. So yeah, it's been a profound shift. And now that I'm really focusing on those deeper friendships, I also have a lot more time, which is really nice because I get to do a lot of other things and not just, I don't know, it was a chapter in my life where I needed to be as many people's friends as possible. And now it's just coming back to solid connections.
Yeah, for sure. That's what we want. That's what's actually nourishing, right? Like those few deep connections where you can like fully be yourself, and to where it can feel like family. It's like chosen family in many ways. Like when you go home for Thanksgiving, part of why it can be so triggering sometimes is everybody's just themselves. And like you're unabashedly just who you are and you say what you think, and like getting to that point of friendship where it's like you can fully be yourself and also show up in the vulnerable moments where it's, you know, maybe a little scary to show somebody the emotional depths of where you're, you know, one of your processes or something that you're really struggling with, like mind, body, spirit, in all aspects. And I feel like true friendship is just being able to be accepting and witnessing somebody in their process without the need to like fix them. And, you know, if insight or advice comes through that's helpful, that's great. But it's just like being there for somebody. And I've really come to cherish that.
One of the most amazing things I've been witnessing lately is I cry quite a lot sometimes. I cry in general quite a bit. I'll just break down and I'll just tear up and then I'll go away within 10 minutes. I just flush my emotions out. But I've had a lot of people in this community that I get emotional and they'll just put a hand on me and they'll just hold me and then I'll cry it out and then I'm done. And then we go back to doing whatever we're doing. And I was like, whoa, cool. So to have that space as well. And also, this is a big realization lately, you do want to just share the most vulnerable parts of yourself with someone you know that they're not going to use that stuff against you. Because, man, the amount of people that will use your ugly side against you is pretty scary.
Yeah.
So making sure that those connections that you share with are really cultivated from a place of love.
Yeah. Yeah, it's important, and to be selective as you go on your journey of wanting to have amazing connections and friendships. Like you said, you kind of embarked on wanting to be a good friend and like meet all these people, and it's great. And you become who you surround yourself with, very much so. And so it's like being selective in that aspect of like, it's not necessarily not being open to new connections, but it's just like being in the safety of people that are familiar to you and that you can be yourself with. And yeah, so how, for people that like are maybe on a similar path with that, how did you even come to go on that journey from being completely like feeling alone and isolated to then coming to like the place you're at now? What's a tip of advice or something that people can hear and help them on their journey?
The biggest thing that stood out for me was, if you want to have great friends, you have to become a good friend. And the second part would be making sure that the people you are surrounded with actually are quality. I would rather be alone than have not lesser quality friends, but the ones that don't resonate as much. Yeah. Like I don't really have space for people that superficial. Oh my God. So boring. Yeah. Wow. If that's all you've got, like, no, thank you. Yeah. Show me your depth, because vulnerability creates connection. Yeah. And so I want to see a process of what's going on. So, but yeah, I think the biggest thing is really becoming a good friend. And that means putting yourself in situations. A huge thing, a huge shift in my mind was, I always thought I was bugging people by getting in touch. Like, hey, what are you doing? Want to hang out? No, actually, it's kind of the opposite. Of course, if you overdo it, then it's too much. Yeah. But like, you have to put yourself out there and be like, hey, do you want to hang out? Do you want to do something? I'd love to spend time with you. Yeah. And man, give them your full presence when you're there. I just had, I spent the night yesterday with a friend, and to see someone so distracted when we were together, it was really painful. And it made me, again, reflect on what I want in my connections. Yeah. And if I can't have full presence for the majority of it, the time we're hanging out, I'd rather be home. Yeah. So put your phone down. Yeah, straight up. Love it. So good. It's interesting. You kind of said something of like earlier when we were like talking to people of like it being almost like a surprise or shock that people wanted to spend quality time with you or something, and that kind of has a strand of like the worthiness piece that I want to dive into a little bit today, because I see you as somebody that's like, you're such a rad human being. I'm not just saying this, but like, you're so brilliant in the way that your mind operates and the way that you perceive reality and what you're creating, and also just like how human, and like, you are a great friend. I feel like you've gotten to that place where you did it. Check that box. Yes. You're great. And you can always keep improving. Yes, absolutely. But where do you feel like that kind of stemmed from? Because the unworthiness piece of feeling like, and this can go into so many different avenues of not feeling like you're worthy to claim in your ideal version of the life that you want to live, or you're not worthy of depth and intimacy and connections. For you, what has been the journey of unworthiness? It's wild, because I sometimes even surprise myself that I find these nuggets. I'm like, oh, whoa, I feel so unworthy. And it comes up, I think I realized the other day, it comes up in areas that I haven't yet mastered. So if there's an area that I feel, like the other day I was hanging out with a friend, and he's a movement master. And I was like, oh, I've got none of this skill. Why am I even here? This doesn't make sense for me to be here. I'm wasting their time. And I felt a deep sense of unworthiness of wasting their time. And then there was a reframe of, I'm not a specialist in that space. I'm a specialist in different areas. And it made me feel a little bit better about myself. And it's also, for me, unworthiness sometimes is an invitation to see if there's a way for you to up-level a little bit. in that way and really face off with that shadow. But where it stemmed from, my unworthiness, Lord Almighty. Let's think about this one. My upbringing, specifically from my dad's side, was really based on accomplishments.
Yeah.
So if I was accomplished and if I was constantly performing really well, then it was almost okay. It wasn't good. It was almost okay. It was always almost okay. And it was never really that much praise from that side. So it was this uphill battle that would never finish and never stop. So I could never be good enough to my dad when I was young. And I know that this is not how he truly believes. That's not true. But I think that was his way of stretching me to the point where I would continuously want to be better. So, and it probably significantly, definitely helped me to become someone that keeps pushing boundaries and keeps wanting to expand. So that framework was great, and it also can be damaging if you don't face off with it eventually.
Yeah.
Because there can be a lot of unworthiness that keeps stemming up. Because I remember even when I really wanted to become a millionaire by 30. So I was like, woo, okay. So I
You did it. Did you?
Yeah. I was sitting there on my couch, and after grinding, years of work, and I sat on this couch and I like added up the numbers, and I was like, what's in my bank accounts right now? I was like, it was like $1,065,000 or something. And I was like, I'm a millionaire. And that was some of the following couple of years were some of the most miserable of my life. Because all of a sudden it wasn't good enough. And, now I'm spending time with people that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and they are somehow making me at times project and make me feel like it's not good enough what I've created. And I'm like, whoa. And I could sink into that and be like, whoa, I am pathetic. Or also realize that what I've done is pretty badass and it's not at the scale that they've done. And that's also okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting, especially for a lot of people that see the beautiful things that you've created and the life that you've been able to design for yourself. It's so rad. And a lot of the times the results that we've gotten in life have been a byproduct, and it stemmed from a deeper feeling of inadequacy of some sort, especially when it's like the externally motivation and desire for finding worth externally, right? And your achievements. And so that's a big cord, and that's a big thread that has been for you over the past decade, like a really strong being more in your masculine and creating businesses and going down this route of achievement and like finding your sense of worth and validation a lot of times in kind of these external successes, which has been great for the life you've been able to create for yourself. But at a certain point, when you define yourself in a certain way, you can find yourself in that way. And now you're coming to this really beautiful like turning point in your life where you're stepping more into your feminine essence and like exploring that. And so I want to dive into what that journey has been like going from this whole, past decade of your life of achievement, success, hustle-oriented vision to now softening and kind of the
fluffy outfit.
Fluffy, feminine outfit. The pendulum swings.
The pendulum does swing. That was a bit of an interesting, weird journey because, as I said, I was achievement focused, and I really feel like I slayed a lot. Currently sitting on, I don't even like talking about this aspect of things, but to give some credibility, I have 12 houses. I investor in precious metals, written a book, best-selling book, investor in fine art, crypto, like a lot of things.
Millions of followers.
I'm like so humble.
So humble.
But I want to say that because I got to this point, and a lot of people try to get to here, and they think, "Oh, I'm gonna be set. I'm gonna be really happy." Sorry. It's not the case. I think for a lot of people, and this is what's been interesting. Now, I am going to point out that having this is really beautiful when you finally find the balance. So I'm really grateful for it now. There was a time where I resented it because it separated me from almost everybody I knew because not hardly anyone could relate to me.
Yeah.
So that made me feel even more alone. They say it's lonely on the top. It absolutely can be. because it takes away your ability to relate to the masses that haven't experienced your life. And I don't think that only is relevant to finances. I think there's a lot of way to create separation if you're too much of a genius. I've met geniuses that can't even connect with people because they're too smart.
So much in their intellect.
It's crazy. So too much of the good thing can become pretty poisonous as well, unless you learn how to integrate it. So anyway, I've done these material world things and it really didn't bring me any fulfillment, which was the wildest part at all. I remember someone sharing the story. It was one of my best friends in Iceland, and he said there was a really, really big boxer champion. He was like 25, and he won the biggest title that you can win. And afterwards, shortly, he was like thinking of committing suicide straight afterwards, because it's like this pinnacle, everything you want to achieve, and then it just, where do you go from there?
Right.
So I only had goals of like millionaire by 30, and I didn't think beyond that. And so when I reached this point of having the material realm, which I felt very satisfied, like I had enough, I didn't feel like I needed to do more, I didn't know where to go from there, because I'd never known that there's other ways you can be fulfilled. I didn't understand that there's like this whole other section of being human that you can unlock, which comes in the realm of, I mean, so many other things. There's so many things you can pursue. But for me, it became friendships and became spirituality. And then I don't even know how this conversation started, but realizing that there is this, the world that we've created is so heavily tailored to masculine energy. And now that I know this, it's so clear. But when I first heard this concept, I didn't know what the hell that people were talking about. I was like, what? I mean, I'm a female and I'm slaying in the world. So obviously it's not, I don't know what they're talking about. Like, it is tailored for females as well. But I mean, as in the structures, even to the point of, a female's menstrual cycle should be dictating how much exertion we put out into the world at specific times, because our hormones fluctuate so much that during, like when we're bleeding, for example, we have so little energy, but we're meant to just suck it up, put a tampon in and go. And it's like, well, this is the time when we actually need to rest a lot. But there's no space for that in modern society, because it has been structured around the masculine principles, which is like go, 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 really be full on, really be driven. The intensity of just pushing through no matter what. And this is what I did, 12 to 16-hour days for 10 years, nonstop, no rest at all. And it worked for me for a while. It got the results in the physical world, but it definitely left me depleted. And it's been 2 to 3 years now where I've been unraveling that lie that was told to me about me needing to perform and be productive at all times. Because my body said no. My body literally was like, you're not working. And it's only now that's coming up to me being able to restart a little bit. Yeah. But I've spent the last 3 years doing about 10% of the workload that I used to do. So maybe 1 hour a day, maybe sometimes it's a 1 hour a week job that I do. And unraveling this lie about having to perform and be productive at all times has left a lot of space for me to be confused and not know what to do. And then I started witnessing the conversations that a lot of women were having around the world, or not even just women, but about a balance that is needed. And I've been able to see the world is really desperate for something else. Like, everybody's so tired, everybody's exhausted, everybody keeps pushing. And at the end of our lifetimes, we're going to just remember that we pushed the whole time.
Yeah.
And we forget about the other 50% of what it means to be human for every single one of us, because all of us have access to the feminine and masculine energies of like magnetism and making yourself into a person that magnetizes opportunities to them. Yeah. And I have guy friends that are experts at this. Like, they will sit around, they don't do anything, and then opportunities flow to them. And it's really, it's been confronting for me to witness, because I realized that means that everybody's got access to this power as well. And when I think back on my lifetime, the things that have been the most profound that I've entered my space is not when I'm pushing. It's actually they come to me when I magnetize them towards me through being the best version of myself that I can be, through being super present with people, through conversations that I have, just the person that I am.
Yeah.
So that journey's been profound. The feminine energy is really fun.
Yeah.
And embracing that, the softness of it, the emotions, which I have a lot of, the chaos, the caring, the loving. Oh. And you know what I want to talk about too? Do you know?
There's a couple things that cross my mind.
Okay.
What is it? You want to go to it right now?
Into the next phase of potentially what the life could incorporate.
Yeah. So let's go on a journey to get to that point.
Great.
So there's a lot of things that you touched on that I just want to quickly riff. And, I think that we do live in a society where a lot of the women, unfortunately, because the masculine has been so wounded in the way that it's been showing up in the planet, both on a macro level, but then also within families on a micro level, weak masculine men will create women that need to be hard, rigid, and perform in their masculine, and strong, healthy masculine men will create women that find strength in their softness. And that's so beautiful. And it's been amazing to see you come into this place where I feel like you're really blossoming now and more into your feminine and it's so exciting because that's where really the magic is. It goes from this paradigm of hustling and achieving to aligning and receiving, from how life can provide. And nature is inherently abundant, and so when we're in touch with our inherent natural state, we will find attunement with abundance. And to also have gratitude for the journey that you have been on and why you have been, you chose the parents that you did, if you want to look at it from that lens, and why you had to go through that lesson and the privilege that it's been able to create in your life. You did go through a long period of working really hard, being strong in your masculine, and that, created some pretty awesome results where you can work an hour a week or a day, and like that'd be cool. And a lot of people will hear that, and yeah, not a lot of people are willing to put in the time and the dedication and discipline that it takes to really manifest that. And now you have the time freedom to actually chill and be in your feminine and explore the various different things that your body is telling you. And you can do that no matter where you're at. But now the time freedom that financial freedom creates allows space for you to really explore a lot of these things, which I've been seeing you, especially your time in LA, like exploring all these naturopathic doctors and all these, healing modalities. And it's been a beautiful switch. So just wanted to say that.
Thank you. It's been a great journey. I feel like you've really seen me transform in the back. Like I think about that as a little cocoon, and I even spoke to the previous someone that was living there, and she felt the same way. She was like, it was like this space that nurtured me, that helped me come alive, and you're such a big facilitator of that. It's so nice to witness, because you are that very strong masculine force that you've been there for me when I've had breakdowns, and you've like been like, hello. You've heard me have my like screaming, and you're like, everything okay? Oh yeah, you're good, okay. And there's been no judgment. It's just you've made yourself known. So what you said about the masculine is so true, because there's so much power in softness. I had no idea. I used to judge so hard when women were soft. I was like, oh, pathetic. What an asshole I was.
Yeah, an asshole to yourself, and
I was disowning myself in that moment. It wasn't judging them; it was judging myself and that part that I disowned.
Of course.
And now that I see the power of softness and the sensuality and intimacy of what is accessible when you soften.
Yeah.
This is it. You can't really put a monetary value on it. That's why society hasn't seen it as so strong. And so valuable, but it is more valuable than anything that I've ever come across.
Yeah. So valuable and so powerful in its own way. I feel like, perceive power very much in like the masculine sense of what can be quantified in dollar signs and views and structure that can be built. And it's a shame that on a large scale, the destruction of the feminine has happened, I feel, because that's where the magic and power of life really lies. It's a life force energy within the cell walls, and it's like if you just have the cell walls and there's no life force in it, you don't have anything that's alive. And so, being able to switch, I guess, your lens on what is desirable within yourself and what you want to create in your life has now led you to the place where you're like open to the exploration of like being a mom one day and going down that route, which is really cool. I don't think you've shared too much about. So what's been like the process of energetically shifting, coming more back into yourself, and then like, yeah.
This is a big thing for me to talk about. It's really beautiful. Yeah. So I came out of a 7-year relationship at the beginning of the year, and there was some discussions of whether or not, you know, the family's going to be the next thing. And we entered that relationship, both of us being like, never having kids. It's stupid. Why would we ever do that? And then also I remember hearing like Jordan Peterson, for example, he talks so much about women that are super driven. And then at some point, you know, the priorities change into wanting families. And I remember hearing that and I was like, he doesn't know it's not going to happen. There's no way. And then my mom being like, oh, it's the ticking clock's going to come along. Anyway, I rejected all of it. I just, and I think it came from fear. Really, it's a really scary process to think about growing a human inside of you.
Yeah.
And then pushing that thing out.
Right.
Whoa. And then having to look after something else when I have had a life of being selfish, which has been really nice. I've really enjoyed my time. I've done so many amazing things. But towards the end of the relationship that I was with, that I was in, something was creeping in. And I even remember one day just waking up and I was like, somebody impregnate me. And I think
I heard you run out into the street and say that. I was like, that's a strange way to try to get someone to get you to be pregnant, but it's Venice, you never know.
It will probably work. To clarify, that's not going to happen. But that thought popped into my head and I was like, whoa, what is that thought? That was so weird. Anyway, we didn't align with the views that we were having in the relationship on that side of things. And when I became single, I really had to think about that. Oh, actually, I had this thought process at the back again. This space is so healing for me. But I remember just, can I talk about drugs?
Whatever you want.
Okay, great. So I have one of the most beautiful relationships with marijuana. Some people really abuse it, but for me, cannabis, she calls me about once or twice a month and I have a puff and then I like she'll be like, have a puff now. I'm like, okay. So I'll have a puff and then she gives me the most groundbreaking insights. It rewires my brain in that moment and I don't know what I'm going in for. So I was at the back and she was like, now. And I was like, okay. So I have my puff and I remember just thinking, wow, I've spent my whole life thinking about career and I have very specific goals about what I want to create with career. And I kept trying to force it for the future because I haven't had any goals for myself for a really long time, which is a really bizarre space for me to be in. And all of a sudden I was like, wait, I have mapped out my trajectory for my career self, but what about the self that one day is going to be 80 years old? And what about the fact that I have achieved so much material success? Is there no space for something different? Like for me, I was like, wow, I'm going to keep doing the exact same thing for another 60, 80, 100 years, however long I live. I've already done it. It felt kind of empty, but an adventure I haven't been on yet is being a mum. But I had never sat down and mapped out what that would look like. What would my partner look like? Where would I live in the world? How many children? How would I raise them? Like I never thought of that. Yeah. And as a manifester, I will think of something and it will basically, I can bring it to life really fast. I had really never put any thought into that. And I was like, girl, like I put thoughts into what kind of partner I'd want, but not my future personal self. Yeah. And I was so sad. For a minute there, I just thought I was going to abandon my whole life and just focus solely on mum. And went for about a week. I was like, I'm giving up everything. I will just be a mum and I don't have a partner right now. What the hell? Now I have to find a partner.
That's a key ingredient.
Yeah, it is a key ingredient. And I'm not going to bring a baby into the world as a single mum. For me, that doesn't feel right. Of course. It doesn't feel right. So, but I was like, wait, okay. So in that week period where I was having this huge insight, I started mapping out what my future would look like and where I'd want to raise the kids and what it would look like and how many kids and what that aspect of life would look like for me. And it wasn't as scary anymore. And it just kind of felt natural that I'd have a project for about 20 years and it felt exciting. And then I went to a doctor, local doctor here, holistic doctor that was recommended. And one of the small things I wrote in the questionnaire before we even saw each other was, one day I want to be a mum, and then I want to prepare my body for it. And so it's become a really big topic of conversation with my doctor to get me to a state where my body is as perfectly primed as possible for when I have the right connection with a partner and then we decide to have children.
Yeah.
So I've been creating my body to be the perfect vehicle for welcoming a new entity onto the planet.
Oh, a little rello.
A little rello.
Oh my God. Can't even imagine.
I cannot even imagine either.
Wow.
Still, which is, the whole process still scares the shit out of me.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's got to scare the shit out of everyone. It's such a beautiful process that I've been able to see now a few friends in community go through, like, oh my God, you're pregnant, to you're huge, to there's a baby. And like, it's been so magic in my experience. And like in those cases, it's like, I don't know, we have this projection of like life kind of stops for 20 years whenever you have a child, but it's been so cool to see, especially the children in like, various different communities are like, they're just like a little being that goes everywhere. And it's like adds so much to the whole experience of life. And it's like a way to rediscover your own child and so many different beautiful things. So that's amazing. That's a really beautiful shift.
And I do want to touch on that point because now I know when I stopped having the breakdown after a week of, I'm just going to be a mum and nothing else. I was like, this is all I have to do. I know I'm going to have a balance of creativity and exploration and building other things. So you can do both, but I also personally want to prioritize having kids. Also, I'll just say it before I get slandered. Not every woman has to have a child to be valuable. That's obviously not the case for me. This is my journey. This is my path. Because I also want to bring like cool kids into the world. And I think I could probably do that. Yeah. My mum's had a really good blueprint of bringing cool kids into the world. Wow, I don't sound humble at all. But witnessing my sister and my brother as well, it's like we're different and I love it. So, I mean, more of that could be pretty cool.
Oh, absolutely. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if we need more conscious children being born on the planet. We don't need people just having kids for the sake of having kids, but really being able to devote yourself to the fostering and the blossoming of another life is a big decision, and it should be made consciously for sure.
And it's building humanity's future.
Yeah.
That's a huge role that we've downplayed in society. Yeah. It's like, it's just having a child, like just get it over and done with. What? And then send them off to a school that's programming them in a specific way that's going to do the exact same thing and not actually move society in a different direction. But if we can program the children from a young age to think differently, that is going to change the world.
Yeah.
And we've downplayed the role of being a mum to the point where it's like, you're a stay-at-home mum? Oh, really? It's like, I am literally building your children's future. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Like it's a really, really big deal what is being done here. It's amazing. The women that dedicate themselves to this cause, like, wow, well done.
Yeah.
And if you choose to do both things, or if you choose to not have a family, also well done. Every single one of us is contributing to a bigger picture we don't even know the value of yet. But as long as this is a big thing, as long as you're following your bliss, that's what you're meant to be doing, because there's something that you're being pushed to do that is required of you at this point in time.
Yeah.
And it all adds up as a puzzle piece for the rest of humanity's contribution.
Yeah. I love it. Amazing. So, and you've obviously gone on the journey of like having these mental realizations of like these internal desires of what you want to go down. And then the health aspect of it has been, I know, big for you in like recalibrating energetically to this new version of yourself that you're becoming. So if you just want to touch on that briefly of like what has been your journey with that and how important it is, because it's a big thing that I personally focus a lot of my time on in my life, from all the things that I do. We did sauna and cold plunge before this podcast, and like from just being very meticulous in like what I put in my body, and I just understand how important that is to inform the psychology. Like we think our mind and body are separate, but they're actually much more one and the same than we realize. And you going on this journey, making these realizations, and then attuning your body to the frequency of what you want to be calling more of in is really important.
I think health is one of the most exciting journeys you can go on. And it's funny how it's been tainted as well. But it's like, it kind of makes sense. Like if you want to have the coolest life, like prime your vehicle as much as possible and focus on it. And if you put the wrong fuel in, obviously you're going to get not the best output. But I've gone to this holistic doctor, and I love one of the things that was a really big piece in my masculine, feminine energy journey was she asked about my trauma, my early childhood trauma. And she was basically trying to pinpoint what was the biggest trauma that's kind of created me, the programming that's been running through my whole body, more or less my whole life. And basically we figured out that I was walking on eggshells. So very much stress mode, very much adrenaline, very much, fight or flight or freeze responses have been in my body my whole life, which fight or flight also assists with being super hyperproductive because, you're fighting all the time through life. So you're extra stress, and the stress, I don't want to mess this up, but basically it's more of an output, so more masculine energy. And so when she figured that out, we've been de-stressing my body massively. So going really to the core, and she's told me not to even exercise as much as I used to, because I can go from no exercise to running 10 miles after 2 years. Like I don't exercise and then I just go. Yeah. And she's like, it's kind of not normal. Like you kind of need a build up for that. So I've been a blob. And at the same time, just releasing the stress out of my body. And currently on a 14-day cleanse to get rid of SIBO, which I didn't know I had SIBO, like because we did these comprehensive blood and stool tests. Like I've really gone deep.
Yeah.
And the most amazing thing is seeing myself soften even more as a result, because my body's not stressed.
Yeah.
And we're getting rid of the stress. And so I can easily soften into being delicate and sensual, and it's all the beautiful things.
Yeah. Oh, so good. I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
It's such a big, especially when you realize like we go like 20, 30 years, a lot of us 60, 70 years without ever like taking a look under the hood of what's going on in our gut. And like, it's so important to get our stool test done and blood test done to see what's out of imbalance and what are the things that you can implement into your daily life to kind of rebalance things. And that I feel like takes a lot of what we would perceive to be like these neuroses that we have in our life and things that like we got to figure out that like have so much pressure in the mind. And it's like just an imbalance in the gut that would be it's so simple.
It's mind blowing how we don't make the link between the mind and the body.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I've got this like I'm sleep deprived. It's like, okay, like what are you eating? Are you having coffee right before bed? Let's talk about those things. But they're like, oh, I just need to take some pills to make me go to sleep better. It's like, yes, also let's look at your lifestyle. Like the whole thing, we are these energetic beings. And if something's out of whack, especially around health, for the mainstream, it's pretty shocking how little emphasis is put on prevention, which comes through a lot of the food that we're eating. And for me, the way that I eat is not really it's not for my body. Like let me reframe. Obviously it's for my body, but not for looks. To me, that's not even.
Yeah, appearance. It's not for
whatever.
appearance.
It's going to disappear one day. But if I don't eat right, my mind is completely shot.
Yeah.
And I'm not willing to sacrifice my mind and my imbalance. Like I don't want to be imbalanced because I want to show up as best as possible in this lifetime. Yeah. So I eat so that my mind is stable. And I also learned that because of my SIBO, I'm fully imbalanced in that space energetically because my body's not processing properly. So I also become really imbalanced in the mind because of SIBO. So now I'm getting rid of it, and we'll see if I can restore my brain.
Amazing. So I feel like as you go on that journey and like you're softening more and you get to listen to yourself, in my experience, the more you become a healthy, vibrant individual, the more that your intuition becomes stronger. Like your ability to listen to yourself is more clear. You're a clear vessel for like what your soul's dharmic path is, what you want to be creating in life. And I know you've been on, especially the past few months, like a bigger journey of recalibration of so many different things. What has been your journey listening to your intuition and how that's guided you to where you're at in your life now? Because you're a big creator. Like you create a lot of things, and a lot of times people see that in the external world in terms of videos or photos or businesses, and it's amazing. But you know, you've listened to yourself to come to that place to even desire to create those things. So yeah, what's been your journey listening to your intuition? How do you feel like that's brought you to where you're at today and where you're going?
Intuition's my best bud. I feel like I've intuitively, I think I've been following my intuition, most of my life. I can give some very, very concrete examples, though, of how much it's shifted my life. So I remember I was sitting in Australia I was about 25, and I was working in a job that I loved, and it was amazing. I also had this side gig where I was doing video work for companies, corporate work, and I was making more money than I ever had in my life, and I was hanging around this millionaires that were doing great things and real estate investors, and it's where I wanted to be. And I also had this creative job, that internship, photography internship with one of my best friends, and I just adored this chapter. I had just met a guy that I thought I was going to be with forever. Like everything was perfect. And I was sitting at my desk working away, and my heart just said, go to Europe one way. And I was like, what? No, I'm 25. No. What do you mean? Go to Europe one way now? I have everything set up for me. I was like, go to Europe one way. Buy one-way ticket. You've never lived in Europe as an adult. Go one way. I was like, oh God, no. So anyway, for 2 months leading up to me leaving, I was crying almost every night because I was so scared and sad that I was leaving. However, I knew I had to. It was beyond me. It just had to happen because this voice was so strong. Sometimes it comes a little bit more subtle, but in this repetitive thought process of like, you should do this. Hey, by the way, remember this. Hey, by the way, remember this. And that's the second hit that I got. Well, not second. One of the other hits that I've recently, in the last 2 years gotten was I just was watching the finance space on YouTube, and so many dudes on there, and I was like, ugh, boring. And I knew for a fact it was beyond any doubt. I was like, I know that I could work in this space and it would work because I knew that there was a desire for females. I just knew it was going to work. And I was sitting on this idea for about 12 months, maybe 24 months before we actually did it with my business partner, my ex-partner, which is now turned into business partner. And within 12 months, we slayed in this space. So it doesn't mean that I have to execute on these things necessarily, because now we have a team with Abundantia of 11 amazing individuals that without them we would not be able to do what we do. Yeah, it's I don't have to execute, but I have those intuitive hits that I know things are going to work.
Yeah.
And so I follow them pretty fiercely because it's at the point, though, that I feel I'm so kind of in tune with myself that if I go against it, my whole life starts falling apart really severely, and it hurts me physically, starts hurting me. Like nothing is flowing. It's like I'm pushing a giant boulder up the hill, and eventually I get exhausted.
Yeah.
And I just can't go on. And I thought people kind of felt the same way, and they kept doing. They did the same thing, but then someone pinpointed out to me. They were like, "No, actually, this is sometimes people just override it and they keep going with their lives." The discomfort, if you don't follow your intuition, for me is so significant that my life falls apart, and everything feels heavy and miserable, and I'm depressed. Oftentimes the result, if I don't follow my intuition, is I become like depressed. So I'm like, oh, okay, I have to do something because I can't live like this. Yeah. So I'm grateful that my physical body shows me feedback, gives me like such significant feedback of you're not on your right path, time to switch. And then for the sake of knowing that I'm going to die one day, and I don't want to live this miserable. I have to make the change, as uncomfortable and horrifically scary as 99.9% of the time it is to walk away from a relationship that you've been in that you thought was going to be forever, to move from a country that you thought you were going to live in forever. Yeah.
How have you been able to, in those difficult moments where it's like you're at a crossroads of exiting a long relationship or making a big business decision, where you're listening to your intuition and you feel like you're getting clear guidance, but it's like, it's hard. These decisions are hard. How do you still make them?
They're horrible. I've had the worst conversations that are not pretty. Like, pretty would be the furthest I'd have to describe them, but I just knew intuitively that things are not on track, and I've had to have discussions with business partners or friends, family, whatever it might be, that are really uncomfortable. And, you know, sometimes there's screaming involved. I wish it wasn't. I wish I was like more high and mighty, but we trigger each other in some ways, especially when there seems to be higher stakes. And I guess those conversations, no matter how ugly they might be, are still necessary, because it means that change is available. If nothing is raised, then how can anything change? And if change is what your heart is calling for, then you have to go through those hard moments. Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to keep going on the exact same path you've gone on, and you know where that's going to take you. Yeah.
Yeah. It's pain or discomfort. One of the ways of just like staying where you're at, and like that subtle level of like a thorn in your shoe that is just like constantly annoying the shit out of you, but you just like deal with it and you tolerate it, versus the quick rip the Band-Aid off and it hurts and it sucks and it's painful for more painful for a shorter amount of time. But then you get to transition and grow and move into that new direction.
And really painful.
Yeah.
Like, it's really, really painful.
Yeah.
All of the things, all of the lying on the floor, not being able to breathe, not being able to, like, suffocating on your own tears, like, for months.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah. I mean, it depends what we're talking about. And for people where they're at in their journeys, it can be, longer periods but often I feel like there are these quick conversations that can be, much less scary than the resistance that we initially have to them. We make them to be these big things, but it's like, no, just having a conversation that is really uncomfortable for like an hour, and then things are much better after.
True, just clarity.
Yeah.
I think everybody what the biggest thing maybe people want is clarity. And I also almost always find that if you have these conversations with people, there almost seems to be a reciprocity on the other side of like, I actually feel something slightly off as well. Yeah. It's like, oh, cool. And then we get to work through it, even though it might not be the united vision at first, that we both see eye to eye on that vision, but we both know that something's off. Yeah. And then we try to transition into it. Yeah. And, the more I'm now learning about communication, because I love it, this community is great. And they've introduced me to so many different aspects I didn't think about. And communication is a big thing of like learning to converse with people properly, because our word is all we have. And if you're misusing it, or you're not intentional about it, or you're not present to what you're saying, then you don't extract the wisdom and the desires that you actually have inside and communicate them properly. So learning how to communicate better means that now my conversations don't have to get to the boiling point as much. Of course, I know they're going to happen, but trying to, hear people's pain behind what they're actually saying, rather than taking their words at face value, sometimes is really special. And when you learn to communicate better, you have access to not just the words that are coming out, but also you see so much more. Yeah. So that's been really profound too, in learning to communicate.
Yeah. It's huge. Clarity, I think, is what we desire for sure. And how you do that in relationships with others is through clear communication, and like clearly expressing, stating what your boundaries are, what your desires are, seeing what that matches up with someone, where there's alignment, where there's not alignment, and figuring that out. And so that's huge. So I'm excited that you've been you've been having painful, difficult discussions. I feel like with a few individuals that have been necessary and needed in various different moments, and to see the alignment that comes out on the other side is just so freeing. So very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I think a lot of people, including myself, like see what the life that you've been able to create for yourself, and it's very much been by design. Like you're like, what do I want to create? What lifestyle do I want to live? How much money do I want to make? Where do I want to travel? The quality of relationships. And so like you are a very strong manifester and somebody that I've been able to see create the life that they want. And so for people that are listening to this right now, I just want to dive into this topic a little bit with you, for seeing you on this journey of becoming like a creative alchemist in so many ways, jumping from an identity of a YouTuber or a photographer to a YouTuber to a financial educator to a business leader to musician.
Oh yeah.
That's another topic, another box we can open. But I love it. I mean, I think life is too short to be defined in one little box of like, I'm this, you know? So it's been great to be able to see you and the fluidity of your identity, creating who you want to be and what you want to create in life. And so there's a couple things that we can touch on here. Yeah, the first being a manifestor and creator of life and how you've been able to design the life that you have for yourself. And of course, like we talked about earlier, the financial piece of like being in your masculine and creating those things, while detrimental to certain aspects of you, have afforded you time freedom and financial freedom to follow the life that you want to do and have the resources to be able to pursue it and the freedom to do that. So it is a very important side. I feel like a lot of people, especially while on the spiritual path, don't talk about, and it's something that a lot of people struggle with. Like money is a very real thing. Mm-hmm. It's energy that we use to exchange to move throughout the three-dimensional reality. And if you don't develop some sort of mastery over it, you're going to be very stifled in what you can create in your life.
Yep.
So this is a huge piece. There's a lot of avenues here. I'm just gonna throw it up in the air if you want to touch on any of them to start.
Well, yeah, I do want to touch on the piece of like finances, because the starving artist or starving spiritual person is a really real thing.
Very real. So
and it's really fun for me to now be witnessing the amount of, I'm going to say mostly women that are super spiritual, but they haven't been able to put the other aspects in place, like the masculine energy, the structure around their gifts, to be able to monetize them and get it out into the world. And I'm flipping completely. I'm like, oh, I want to know what your world is all about. Teach me your spiritual path. Yeah. And that I can see how grateful I am that I've taken the journey from in the masculine, because learning about those structures has, as you said, afforded me so much time freedom and thought freedom. That I get to do these things without any pressure now. So that piece is so vital. And I will say that myself right now, I'm so swung on the pendulum on the feminine side that it's really, I can see the difficulties of women that are so much in their feminine energy. How difficult it is to come back into balance, because I'm not even there yet. I'm not at all in a space where I'm like ready to go back into the structure. Yeah. So I can sympathize with people that are in that very feminine flow of understanding of needing to transition over. Man, like definitely, I think the biggest thing that would help in that space is to have a routine for first and foremost, and start bringing structure back into your day. And also education, like doing actual courses and actually having, I'm just thinking of myself, what would help me to get my butt into gear right now. It would have to show up somewhere at a certain point in time to actually learn the skills that I need to, and have someone that's accountable for helping me to get my gifts out into the world and actually monetize them. Yeah. And then I would say also working on the being worthy of receiving as well, and seeing your gift as profound. To give a backstory as well, if people are like, oh, but my gift isn't worth as much. Like, I made my first $1 million off selling selfies. So
give a little bit more context for that, because it's so fascinating. I love that you just say that.
Well, I figured because no one knew at the time what I was doing, and they all just thought I was a stupid little kid that was doing what I made into they're self-portraits, but I call them advanced selfies because I found it funny. Yeah. And everybody was like, oh, cute. Sorelle, look at her doing her self-portraits. Like, oh my God, adorable. And then now it's like, oh, you did what with that? How much did you monetize that? You bought how many houses from selfies? And it's really fun. And I share that story because I believe that anything can be monetized.
Yeah.
Anything. The way you position it is everything. Yeah. And being able to talk to people about like what it actually means to for me, it's like getting a really good photograph of yourself not only is nice for, your ego, but also you can do it in the comfort of your own home when no one's judging you, because judgment in front of others to try to look good is something that I've had to deal with, of like, oh, I'm trying too hard right now, so I can't like do that. But if it's just me and the camera, I can express myself in whatever way I want. And by being able to see myself in a better light through capturing my essence, the way that I think I look on camera, has given me the confidence in life to also pursue so much more, to show up in the world with so much more confidence and dress better even in real life, like explore myself. It's just a tool of exploration, really, self-portraits. So the way that you position anything that you have, it just has to be, you really have to dig into what it is that you are offering on a very practical level as well. So bring in the spiritual aspect of it, but then also bring practical results that people can get from whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
So I think that's it is an important piece, and the world needs what you have. Like there's a reason why you are doing what you do, and the world really desperately needs it. You just need to find an angle that's unique.
Yeah. Like
self-portraiture, I didn't freaking invent it. I just took a spin on it and made it desirable and kind of hilarious.
It's so, I love it. I love the story in the context of just how you can truly turn anything into a business, and that's very refreshing for whoever's listening to this right now. And if you feel like you have a gift for public speaking or basket weaving or self-portrait photography, or teaching guitar, literally anything, creating the right frame and funnel for people to receive your offering in a way that you can be supported and monetized, I think is also, and I know we've had this conversation, it's an amazing gift you've been able to create in your life. And I think that you'd be an amazing guide for supporting other people in this process, whether it's a course you create or something like helping people do this, because it's needed. And the starving artist is very real. And I could have started this podcast 2 years ago. Like I had the desire for sharing myself more in this way, and I didn't just put it off, but I really wanted to focus on building my business, Meraki Media, which is the production company first, and have that be the financial horse of what I'm doing. That way I can step into this, which feels like my form of art and like my passion, and it not be dependent on financial resources for its success. Because a lot of people, whether it's their music or the photography or whatever, it's like their passion, and it gets, they're dependent on that for their own living, which is great if it works. But if for years and years go on and you're struggling, it's like it sucks the juice and the joy from it.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what you're doing with these things that are going to, sometimes it might not feel full integrity. Like I love taking self-portraits, and like there's aspects of things that I don't want to do because it feels like I'm, it's like, oh, really? Do I have to build a landing page? Like, do I have to do these things? Do I have to create a course right now? Like, it's a bit like, I'd rather be out gallivanting in the woods naked, standard. However, all you're doing is buying time for you to create your art. And so, as you said, this is your art piece. So my art piece, I have all these art projects that I'm starting to want to create. I want to have my art that I don't even have the art yet, but I have an idea. I want to have it in galleries. It's like, cool. I know that it's not going to pay me though. Yeah. Like selling art in a gallery, to me, it's not a way to monetize that well, unless you're a really big artist. Or, me making music now because it's a childhood dream. I know it's not going to make me money.
You don't know that.
Well, I'm not at all counting on, like, I don't need it to make me money.
Yeah. But it could blow up. And like, I wasn't planning on this podcast making me money. And I'm sure 6 months from now, it'll probably be making me a lot of money. But like, it's not the reason I'm doing it. And you stepping into music is the same thing, which is great.
Yeah. It's just buying you time. So now I've done all these other things that a lot of people, I remember starting to talk about finances, and I had people unsubscribing and being really triggered because they were like, oh, you're only in it for the money. That this is so like, don't talk about this. And they were so triggered by just the thought of talking about finances that they were unsubscribing from me after being with me for years. And I was like, now I understand that it's not a reflection of me, it's a reflection of them and how taboo this topic of finances is. Yeah. But it's not. Money is, oh my gosh, money's so beautiful. And one thing that I've had is I've had a really beautiful, I think, relationship with finances and money because I just see it as energy.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It just wants to be nurtured. Money wants to be it wants to have a best friend. Yeah. And the amount of people that treat money like trash and they talk about it with such little respect or they get rid of it. The minute they have it, they rid of it. And it's like, imagine like I was your friend and you are always like talking down on me and talking about how shit I am and how annoying I am and also trying to get rid of me all the time. What would you do? Eventually you'd leave. You want to be in that presence. Yeah. But if someone's like so respectful and loving and not obsessed, because that's also a really clingy relationship dynamic, but if someone's like, wow, hi, and they nurture you and they make you feel special and loved and you really see the energy of money as something just beautiful, money loves that.
Yeah.
And it wants to be in that presence. So if you have gratitude for what you have and respect it and treat it with dignity and you don't spend it on things that are not important to you and they're not fulfilling and they don't uplift you in some way and they don't rise your vibrations, like it's going to find a different home.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's so powerful. It's just like we have so much inherent programming around money that is so unconscious. Like for people that are listening to this right now, if I was to say money is the root of all
joy,
but most people, it's money is the root of all evil. Money doesn't grow on trees. Rich people go to hell. That might sound a little stark. I don't know how common that one is.
No, eat the rich. Yeah, that's it. That's the thing. I just want to.
Money literally does grow on trees, which is the funny thing, you know.
Oh, it does. It does.
It literally is paper. So it's
Australia, it's plastic. So.
Oh, really?
Anyway, but it's Mother Nature still. Everything comes from Mother Nature. That programming is really, really detrimental because I actually think that programming has been made in order to keep people very small. Because when someone has money, of course, it amplifies who you are. And it can make you a horrible being if you are a horrible being. Yeah. However, the right people that have money in their hands is what the world needs right now. We really need people that are like, yes, I love money and I want a lot of it so I can do good in the world. I've been able to do way more good with my resources that I have than if I didn't have this money. Yeah. I've been able to help 100 times fold than if I didn't have this cash. So yeah, I have luxuries. Yes, I love to spoil myself with adventures or trips or good food or health. Yeah. And I get to have things for myself and I get to amplify what is needed in the world as well. Because I do think that my heart, I'd like to say, is in the right place. I don't want someone else to suffer as a result of me having more. So, and I want more. I truly believe what you said before, that there's an abundance, and I've seen it and I've only slightly tapped into it. There is an abundance of money in the world, and it's so confronting when you find out how much there is because you don't really believe it because there's no evidence for you that you have it. So it can't be true. Oh, it's only reserved for those people. Fuck those people. Yeah. That's not it at all. It's a well that is never ending. Yeah. And it's amazing. And for when you finally find out how, like the modality of you to be able to extract your slice of the pie, it's glorious. And it's a journey in of itself. And I think one worth pursuing. It's really fun. You can do it with integrity. Yeah. You don't have to sell your soul for it.
No. And it can become so fun. It can become a game. Like life is such a game. Yeah. And you can just continue to up level, and you see how it's all made up in so many ways where like the Federal Reserve can at will just throw billions of dollars into circulation. Yep. And it's literally just numbers on a screen at this point, right? Not backed by gold or anything. Exactly. And so it's like when you open your eyes and remove some of the programming that's in the way, then it's like, okay, there are trillions of dollars in circulation on the planet right now, and money is just energy, and finding containers that can allow some of that to pour into something that you want to create. And having the why, I think, is really important. Like, why do you want the money, right? And because otherwise, if you just say you want money for money's sake, it's like, get intentional with what do you actually want to create? What is the lifestyle you want to live? How do you want to support the planet? What do you want to be building? And when you know why you want what you want, it just gives it that much more energy for it to come in, I feel like. Mm-hmm.
That's also a good framework. You just reminded me of one of the questions you asked before of how I've manifested the life that I've wanted to live. Yeah. And there is actually a container that I've used in order to extract that information out of myself that I found really, I never knew how important this structure was for me, but I've always used it since I was 20, maybe even less. Essentially, it's just like separating life into different categories. And I have like 8 categories that I go for. Let's see if I remember them. Spiritual, emotional, family, finances, career, mental, social. Damn it.
That's an interesting one.
There's one more. Anyway, they're groovy. They're based off the principles of Dr. DeMartini. So that's if someone wants to find out what the 7 he has, I just added emotions into that one because it didn't feel full without having an emotional category. And then I list down intentionally what I would like to create in that space. So life doesn't become this overwhelming bubble of fuck. Where do I even start? Yeah, I can actually hone in and figure out, in this category, this is what I'd like for it to look like. So that's been, being able to break up life has been a really big thing. And then it doesn't feel like you're struggling to do it. It's just like unpacking and unraveling the steps of achieving those goals within that category.
Yeah. It's a powerful framework, and it's actually one that I have used since I was 17 also.
Wow.
I've had 6. So mental, physical, spiritual, relationship, financial, and social, were my 6. And I'd go through, and there were periods of my life where I would every week rate myself how I'm doing on each on a scale of 1 to 10, and like how I could like learn about and improve different areas in my life. And it's like you can't grow what you can't like keep track of, you know? And so it's like even just the act of like feeling where you're at in those different areas of life can then help you refine what do you want to grow, what do you want to focus on. So that's amazing.
That's it. I do. That's why we're so great. Go.
So that's a very powerful framework. I love it. Okay, we've been touching on a lot of things in this podcast. There's, a couple more things I think we can touch on before wrapping up. But was there anything that you want to mention with the music thing? Just because I feel like that's really exciting.
Let me not shy away from it.
Yeah,
it just feels for me it's like so out of the blue.
Yeah,
it's been a dream since I was 11. I was a little kid and I did a music performance at school, and I remember thinking if I win this one, I'm gonna become a musician. And so I won, and then we moved countries from Poland back to Australia, and I just lost touch with that whole side of me.
What were you doing? What kind of like music?
I was singing a Polish song.
Nice. Would you care to recite it for us now here on the?
I am very good. Thank you very much. I don't even remember which song it was or the words. So anyway, this year when I was in Iceland, my friends are super talented musicians, and last year 2 years ago. Last year, I started dabbling with my friend Tom in Iceland, and I just remember, I guess intuitive hit. I was driving along, and one day, and I was like, hey Tom, just sent him a voice note. Hey Tom, if you ever have like a spare song that you haven't used and I can sing over top, that'd be funny. I think it was like funny, ha ha ha. It was like great idea, and I was like yes. So we ended up exploring in the studio for a while, and it clicked initially. And now this year we signed a contract with the 3 guys that are creating my music. And I've been in the studio a whole bunch, and the album's getting finalized and then mixed, and then I've got to do the whole Shazam of figuring out how to get it out into the world, which is bringing back my marketing skills and learning to perform like the whole thing. Yeah. I didn't realize that I was taking on such a mammoth of a project, music videos, all of it. And it's a cool exploration of an artistic expression that I hadn't done before, and seeing how this whole package works. And it's very structured. It's a lot of work, and it's exciting. And I have no idea where it's going to take me. But one thing someone said, it's like, at least I get to explore this childhood dream of mine, because I've had the chance to go into early retirement. So I'm not a 60 or 70-year-old person that hasn't fulfilled this dream of theirs. Yeah. I get to be a 33-year-old that is like, let me explore this like weird project. Yeah. because I can, and see what happens. And so I genuinely have no idea. My friends are organizing, talking to labels and distributors, and it is happening. Like it's all happening, and it hasn't sunk in yet because it's so overwhelming to even consider.
Yeah. I can't wait to actually hear some. I've gotten some just by hearing you play it over and over in the back, but like I haven't gotten the full experience. That's wild. I love that you just commit yourself to like, all right, I'm gonna do this. I'm not gonna do it half-assed. I'm gonna make an album and I'm gonna go in and make the best thing I can.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah, that's one thing that I would say that I really do enjoy is like, might as well commit.
Yeah.
Give it 12 months, see what happens.
Yeah.
Full on.
So good.
Yeah, all in or nothing. Boom.
Is your artist name going to be just Sorelle?
No. Actually looking for a band name because I don't have any of it yet.
We were joking about you starting a podcast before this and calling it More Sorelle.
Genius.
Genius. I will take my 10%. I don't know why I became Indian.
Only natural.
Very natural. So good. Well, I feel like we covered a lot of ground, and I just want to, invite you. Is there anything else that you feel like that's alive in your heart that you want to speak to that we haven't touched on yet?
That's alive in my heart. What's alive in my heart is just presence. I feel I went through, as you know, a period of being so scared of dying. And I went through panic attacks. And it was some of the hardest things I had to encounter, like facing off with the fact that I'm going to die and people around me are going to die. And it was all triggered by a very accidental experience of being given DMT as one of the first things that I ever encountered in the psychedelic world, which I think was just the stupidest idea. And before that, I was kind of willy-nilly towards living. I was like, if I go, I go, whatever, no big deal. And then DMT just like made me so scared of dying that the gift of that whole experience became being so grateful to be alive in every moment. And now the thing that is the most alive for me right now is really being present, because there's losses all around us at all times, and you really have no idea when you're going to go or someone that you love is going to go. It just happens so swiftly. And however, if you are as present as you can at any moment and putting that phone down as much as possible. I mean, I delete Instagram off my phone as much as possible because it still sucks me in massively. And that is me giving, again, my lifeblood to these things. And it's not contributing to my life at all. If you're not a creator, you're a consumer. And I'd rather be a creator. So, but if you can say, hey, I was super present for the experiences with my friends and family, and even with yourself, like eating a meal with yourself when you're fully present is one of those most sexy things. It's just so beautiful and nourishing for your soul. And when you're so nourished, and that to me, I really do think comes from presence, I feel like life rewards you pretty significantly. Yeah. Your undivided attention for what you're doing in that moment tenfolds. Like the results just roll in as a result because you truly experience every single moment. And if we don't have this life, then what do we have? Yeah. This is it. Like, let's enjoy it.
Yeah. It's so powerful. And even just like recently, like, you know, a friend of ours in community, like recently passed, and getting to, in the weird, I guess, circumstance that it happened, still being able to talk to him before he transitioned fully or see him at the very least. It's like, it's just one of those things where you always say this life is short, and you say that we could go at any moment, and it's a thing you say, but it's such a reality that freak accidents happen that you are not promised tomorrow. Actually, though, like you're really not. You don't know what's going to happen 5 minutes from now. And so, God willing, knock on wood, we get to have long, beautiful lives. And I just got a flashback from that Burning Man moment where I came up to you. It was like the middle of the night and random party. And I was like, Sorelle, I really hope we're like 80 years old and super wrinkly and like still having a blast and deep friends and all the things. And I feel that. I'm holding that vision.
I think it's good. Well, same. I'm holding it.
And knock on wood, hopefully we make it to that point. We're not guaranteed anything, you know? And so being able to come back into the presence of this moment, and the more present you are, the more you suck your life back into the day. You get more to experience more of life, and more of that time comes. And so thank you. Thank you for sharing yourself on this platform and the ways that you have been, and helping people come back into their own presence and listening to themselves. And I think we covered a lot of beautiful themes that are really going to be supportive to the audience in this podcast.
Thank you for letting me talk about a whole range of things.
Yeah.
Like the human being side of things is really nice instead of human doing.
Yeah.
Feels really nice. So kudos to know thyself.
Kudos to know yourself. You must know yourself so you can know thyself.
Exactly. That's your tagline.
Exactly. Genius. So good. Of course. I feel like because I know you, like I can't just focus on one narrow aspect of reality of life. There's so many different things that I think are so interesting and fascinating that we could dive into. So good. So good. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. All right. To everybody that's been listening to this podcast, let us know in the comments down below some insights to your favorite moments. I really love seeing those. And if you haven't already subscribed, I've learned it's important to have these CTAs because the more you say it, people actually do it. Come on this journey with us. Thank you for joining us on your path. And hopefully these conversations are supportive to you. that is my intention. And until next time, be well.